so important to wake up and you know exactly what you need to do that day. You can't run your day on the fly.
I think whatever you're doing, especially in construction, you got to find your why.
I'll be remembered for helping people or speaking up about things I've gone through and encouraging people to speak up.
Words are powerful. I think that you can really change your environment and your mindset by being conscious of the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Welcome, you're listening to Constructing Mindsets. I'm your host, Vincent Saunders. This is the podcast that shines a good light on the construction industry. Whether you're on the tools, in the office, or supporting others behind the scenes, we are hearing from the people who are making this a better place to work and how they are doing it. Please consider subscribing or sharing this story. Thanks for joining us on this one. Let's get into the episode. Ashley Belteky, where are you coming to us from? Melbourne?
Yes, I'm in Melbourne, a little bit outside of Melbourne technically. I recently moved to a spot called Lara, which is near Geelong, which is about an hour out of Melbourne.
Okay, cool. And you've always been in Melbourne?
Originally a Kiwi, was born in Invercargill, spent the first 7 years of my life in Queenstown, but have been in Melbourne ever since.
All right. I find it really hard to just get started in these conversations. I don't know if you find it as well.
Those questions are always the most less natural.
Did you just want to do your career and maybe talk about your podcast or any specific thing you wanted to go over?
I can definitely bring a lot of layers. I can talk about my career journey as a tradesperson and I guess the things I did on that journey. And then obviously talking about the podcast kind of opens up the conversation about leadership and the conversation I'm starting to lean into more. So definitely happy to kind of start at the beginning if that's easier and kind of go how I became involved in the construction industry or obviously how I found my path as a diesel mechanic, and we can go from there.
Yeah, cool. Well, I don't know, it's a great segue and great introduction for yourself. Diesel mechanic, I guess, is an interesting trade. I don't personally know too many diesel mechanics, to be honest. How did you end up being a diesel mechanic?
So it was actually an accident, as much as any career choice can be an accident. So I grew up in catering in a family business. So my dad's a chef by trade and I was probably working very young. I used to be stressed about fighting my sister over who folded the most pizza boxes. And then when I kind of got to my final years of school, I probably had intentions to go to university and follow that traditional pathway. Probably something along some sort of journalism, writing path, because that's something that I'm still very passionate about and probably don't spend enough time doing. But it was where I kind of had a pathway or an idea about what might happen. And then I had an employer come to my school and offer work experience. And I didn't pay attention to a single thing they said and said, yeah, I'll go do that. And then it was about 3 days prior that someone said to me, you know that you signed up to fix trucks, right? And I was like, what? No way. And of course, I went home to mum and dad and I was like, that's it. I can't do my work experience week. But they sat me down and they explained that I had nothing to lose by trying. And thank God they said that, because I went to that week of work experience and ended up completely rebuilding an engine with a mechanic and a first-year apprentice. And I just felt like I found a whole new world and my curiosity was sparked. And I pretty much just kept following it until eventually I got to my final year of school and realized that I didn't have to think about my decision because I was already planning my toolbox and I was talking about what time I was going to have my smoko and lunch. So I kind of made the decision by spending time in industry and continuing to do work experience and really testing my interest and ultimately becoming a mechanic by accident.
It is quite a funny story. And how did so you kind of grew up, not in a family of sort of, I don't know, races or motorheads or anything like that, and you kind of just fell into being a diesel mechanic?
Very much so. Now my dad knows how to service his own fleet of vans and often probably does more than I want him to from a mechanical perspective, but definitely it's been something that I didn't have anyone in transport or that was a rev head and had any sort of project cars. It was completely outside my field of vision. And I think now when I have the opportunity to talk to other young people about the power of work experience, I'm really fortunate to be able to have quite an extreme example that really showcases how sometimes we have to step outside what we see and know, because even if I didn't enjoy that week of work experience, I no doubt would have learned so much about myself as a person from that still would have informed whatever choice came next.
Yeah, I think for my career work experience, I did like marketing, and that's, yeah, I didn't obviously end up in marketing, but yours obviously a bit more, you found your way, so to speak, and kind of, yeah, made it work for you at the time. And yeah, and I guess coming from a diesel mechanic now, I see you do a lot of apprenticeship mentoring for women in trades. More just diesel sort of mechanic trades, or is that all trades for females?
So at the moment, my day job is as a woman in trade mentor, and I'm fortunate in that role that it's not confined to any one industry, and I'm really connecting with all female apprentices across all trade sectors to just be that person who's checking in and making sure everything's on track. And obviously coming from a place of, like, when I signed up as an apprentice, I didn't even know that it was such an uncommon choice for a girl. I just thought it was uncommon because I performed very well in school and then went, no, I don't want to go to university, and became a mechanic, which unfortunately has this social stigma that any sort of trade hands-on role is kind of lesser. And when I kind of entered the workplace, I had that naive lack of awareness of the world and the industry because I didn't really have any other points of reference to understand the trade sector or the transport sector. So it's probably been more learning from other people and then reflecting that I've realized some of the unique challenges and barriers I overcame as a young girl, but then as a woman in industry. And so now I'm in that position where I get to connect with other females who are now going through their journey, and they don't have to explain why something sucks or why something's hard or why these little challenges that are accumulating can wear us down, because I've been there, I've lived it. And I think that community building and that ability for them to see someone who's a few years ahead on the journey gives them hope. It's encouraging, but it also helps them build their resilience, because we're obviously able to have those discussions about pathways to overcome challenges or how to reinforce our well-being and deal with some of those small things that don't have easy fixes and can just sometimes add up and stack up against us.
And I guess, yeah, I was saying to somebody else on my podcast, I took a while off Instagram and then sort of came back onto Instagram doing this podcast and doing, I guess, trying to promote it. And I was just blown away by the amount of different trades, different people sort of sharing all their stories. Came across yourself via Instagram and what you do as well. It's just like there's for me, I guess there's so much out there that is kind of good content to digest in the industry. And coming from a place where I grew up just as a builder and sort of coming from a building family, that was really just, you were just kind of thrown in the deep end to being a builder, and you didn't really know what a builder was until you got on site. But now I feel like the stuff that you do and everyone else does out there, there's more, people can see it and people can actually know what they're going to kind of be in for.
Yeah, I think visibility is a really important role for all people, because if we talk about the skills shortage, it's women are a part of that, but it's about everyone. And it's about, well, how do we make trade industries attractive when historically the online community can be really powerful for that. And what I really love about it, we're proud to be tradies. So how do we communicate that we're intelligent, there's smart people in the trades, there's successful people in the trades. It's not like it's this lesser financial opportunity or lesser challenge. It's just that there's different types of smarts and there's different ways of working. And some people are going to be suited for an office or a classroom, and other people are going to be suited for something that's more active.
And then you also, speaking of classroom, you also do, is it license training as well, vehicle testing and training? And is that, something as well you do as well? There's like the third thing you do?
The list goes on. We could unpack all my different hats over many, many hours. I can't help myself. I'm really passionate about having a positive impact on my industry, but also the trade industry. And it means that I will say yes and work really hard, but I'm like the right amount of crazy and the right amount of obsessed, or at least that's what I'm going to tell myself. And because, I'm so passionate about kind of improving the conversation around trades and having that positive impact on people and culture and some of the challenges we do have in the sector. And so one of the hats I wear to stay connected to my industry as a diesel mechanic is around some casual teaching in our TAFE or trade school sector. And that's very much for me to maintain my skills as a trainer, and still continue to be able to facilitate and improve on those skills, even while I have a different role as my day job. And it obviously means that I'm in the room with mechanics and workshop owners or people who are, they're qualified people, and they're going to get a license to do further inspections and further kind of like technical tasks on heavy vehicles. And it's just a rewarding thing and a way to continue to learn and grow myself as well and still give back to my industry.
So that's kind of a bit of your work history there, and then tying into your podcast as well, Tradies That Lead. Sort of, yeah, where did that, I guess, what sparked you wanting to create a podcast?
I was really fortunate that I was accepted into a leadership scholarship a few years ago while I was still on the tools as a tradesperson. And I remember when I applied for the scholarship, it was for women in construction. And I applied without really knowing whether I counted. Because I was like, well, I don't lead a team. I'm a blue collar worker, and I've never seen any leadership training for tradespeople. It's always targeted at that management executive level. But when I got the scholarship, it really forced me to go on that leadership journey for myself and to unpack what I thought leadership was. Because before that, it was something about, you know, you're a leader if you have authority and if you take initiative. And so I never had the authority, but I would often go out of my way to take the initiative if, like, I remember this one week I had my supervisor and leading hand. They both got COVID at the same time. And we were a small team in a fleet workshop in construction. So we had machines all over different sites that still needed to be looked after. And I was very quick to be like, yep, no worries. I'll do the email at the end of the day to say what jobs got done and what things are work in progress. And I at least had enough self-awareness to not tell the rest of the team what to do. And I said, what do you want to do? And I figured everything else out around that. But that taught me that initiative was like not even a fraction of what it meant to be a leader, because the thing the scholarship did was put us through an assessment where our supervisors and peers gave us feedback on our leadership skills. And it was pretty devastating, the results. And in the sense that I saw myself as a leader, and I've been told as a young person that I had qualities of that. And I kind of thought that was enough. And I had to kind of get sat down and told, you've got a long way to go. You've got a lot to learn. But what that really put me on was a journey to go, well, what does leadership actually mean to me if I still see myself as a leader and I have capacity to be a leader without having a title? And I went on that journey for myself and realized that when I looked at the sector and I looked at some of the challenges we have, whether it's about poor retention, whether it's about sometimes unhealthy workplace cultures, I then finally put the pieces together of going, well, no one's ever really created leadership training for the everyday person. And a lot of the challenges we have in the workplace right now in the trade sector comes from the fact that we almost over prioritize our technical skills and forget to value the people aspects of our job and the impact we have on each other and how we can either uplift or tear down the people that we work with, regardless of whether we have a title or not. In terms of going on that journey for myself and realizing that this was something I was really passionate about, the podcast is one piece of a bigger puzzle to go, well, how do I support the industry to really develop practical leadership skills, not just for the sake of improving culture, but because being able to work better as a team means better performance for teams. It means better performance for businesses. It means better problem solving. So it's not just this is a nice to have. It's that practical leadership skills at the blue collar level can actually create real business improvements and business efficiency, because people were able to collaborate and work together more effectively with less drama, less conflict, and less miscommunication as well.
Yeah, I think I've said it multiple times to different guests I've had, but I think the number one thing you spoke about, communication and working together as a team, I think that's the number one thing that sort of has come out from, I guess you kind of know communication is super important, like as you go throughout your career, or like, I guess you think, like communication is really important. I need to call and talk to these people. But I guess the podcast has taught me it's like other people really kind of know that as well. And maybe, like you said, there's not that much training for sort of, how do you say it? Like the ordinary tradesperson. There might be training for like a business owner or a business leader, but maybe somebody that's a few years out of high school or college starting to kind of really develop their trade. They're basically just being taught by the people that they're working with, and kind of those either habits, good or bad, they might be picking up, and that's kind of just passing through to them as well, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know, that's kind of what I've found. That's kind of why I wanted to start my podcast, is try and find as many people in the industry, that I haven't spoken to. I haven't worked with, like a diesel mechanic. Like, I've never worked with a diesel mechanic, for example. And like, what do they find helpful? What are they doing? Why do they like the industry? What do they think's important? And just kind of share that, like, a bit more of a positive light to the industry rather than kind of what you read.
Yeah. And I mean, of all the sectors that I've worked in as a diesel mechanic, I started in transport, I spent some time in mining, and then I ended up landing in construction. And construction is by far my favorite because it was such a good mix of, sometimes I was in the workshop, sometimes I was on site, sometimes I was fixing a site generator or a water truck. Other nights I could be getting a breakdown at 2 a.m. fixing a road profiler, which you'll have to Google if you've never heard of before, but pretty much it's a big machine that chews up the road for roadworks. Like, I knew nothing about this when I first took the job, and you kind of have to learn so much on the fly as a mechanic, because what I really love about my trade especially is kind of once you get that heavy vehicle or heavy diesel ticket, they'll kind of let you work on anything that's heavy, even if you've never really worked on it before. So it's meant that every day brought a new challenge, and it was just constantly dynamic. But also I'd go and visit sites for routine servicing tasks and service the same generator for 12 months and watch a site go from piles of dirt and weeds into like nicely paved roads, and the first houses are going up. And that's a very rewarding feeling, to drive past roadwork sites and be like, yeah, I fixed a machine there, it broke down. And people probably find it a bit annoying, but there's so much pride in being able to physically see the impact that you have and know the role you play in the bigger system. And to your point about the communication piece, what I learned during the scholarship is that sometimes our strengths can be our weaknesses. And that's true for individuals and teams as much as whole industries. And an example of that is that I'm quite naturally a very positive outlook, optimistic person. Some people assume or interpret that as naivety, where for me it's more of a choice that I choose to seek the best and hope for the best, and that doesn't denying the challenges or the hardships or the realities, but it's going, well, what can I do about it? What's the impact I can make to make it better, and choosing to focus on the positive impact I can have instead of feeling bogged down by the reality of some of the challenges we have. And when it comes to that strengths as a weakness conversation, because I am such a happy person, that sometimes meant prior to having better leadership skills and especially like understanding other people better from a leadership and relationship perspective, I never knew when to dial it down because someone else was having a bad day. And so while that's something that I greatly admire about myself, it also became a massive blind spot. And I think for the industry, and this is potentially a lot of industries, but especially our industry, we all can communicate. That's not the problem here. The problem is that we have the blind spot of thinking that communication is the other person's job to understand, instead of thinking of communication in terms of, it's my responsibility to make sure that I've communicated in a way that this person has understood. And it takes a lot of like gray zone. Like, there's no black and white way of, if I say it this way, it'll work, and if I say it this other way, it won't work, because every person has different associations to words. They associate meaning differently. Some people might need instructions 3 times. Someone might be just on the ball and you tell them once and they make miracles happen. And so as an industry, I think some of those blind spots of the things that we probably do really well or do fine are still the places that we have a lot of opportunity to do better, to have better teamwork and to have better impact on each other.
Yeah, it's like I think this episode will probably be maybe around 15, I'd want to say. And again, all of those people are in different roles in construction. They're all saying communication's the most important thing. But at the same time, I don't know, I think they'll be okay me saying it. We probably haven't been, like, you probably haven't done a communication course or anything like that. Like, it's like we're saying it's the most important thing, but how we're actually doing it, we're like, we're kind of, again, just you just pick it up as you go on?
It's not necessarily that we need to be taught how to communicate. I think the biggest improvement we could make that would have the most meaningful impact is getting better at paying attention to other people when we communicate. Because at the end of the day, when we're busy, as we often are in these sectors, if we're typing an email while we talk to someone, or we're thinking about the job card that we need to finish while we're talking to someone, we're not getting in all the information that we could be about how effective the communication is going. Because if you actually pay attention to someone and get out of the head noise of you and the list of things you're about to tell them, you'll probably notice when they don't quite understand, because they'll pull like a micro expression and you'll be like, they're unsure, or they've glazed over, or you can see that they're getting angry or upset or frustrated. It can be as simple as that. Obviously, text messages and emails and phone calls, they're a slightly different can of worms, but for the most part, that if we pay more attention when we have those verbal or face-to-face conversations, or we take the time to really listen and notice other people, we are more conscious about the information that we're gathering to inform our communication. We don't necessarily have to do a course to do that. It's just about practicing that attentiveness and applying it. And it can be a bit challenging, like, because you're still trying to have a conversation and you kind of find it's hard to observe and think critically and then speak. So it's a muscle to train. But just by paying attention, I reckon that most of our communication skills would significantly improve, because we'd understand more about each other.
Yeah, 100%. I think, I know you've got some amazing insights. I could ask so many questions about communication, and just the stuff you said, to be honest, we'll just end up just talking about communication for like a whole hour. But you had some amazing insights. And I think probably just that I did a coaching course, like a ICF transformational coaching course about a year ago. And one of the things they teach you to be a certified coach is that sort of obviously open questions and things, but then just sort of listening into the person visually, like if they're talking, are they smiling? Are they looking away when they're talking to you? Are they making eye contact about a point? Like all of those things you can kind of gauge, has a person either understood what I'm trying to pass on or the question, or have I lost them throughout that journey of me answering their question or trying to tell them how to do something? Yeah, it's quite interesting. It was quite fascinating for me. All right, well, I think we've kind of done a good little intro to you, to be honest. I've got a few other questions just around the industry for you. I think we've kind of touched on what drew you to the industry, but was it what you expected when you first arrived?
Remember, after my first week of work experience fixing trucks, that I felt like I'd never seen a truck on the road before, and suddenly they were everywhere, which just shows how much that, like, our brain does filter out information when it's not meaningful to us, and all of a sudden trucks were meaningful, and I saw a lot of it. So I don't think I had many preconceptions about the industry before I got into it, because it was such an unplanned experience. But I do think from, I guess, transitioning from transport to mining to construction, I didn't appreciate how different they could all be in the nature of the pace and the way work flowed, and obviously the different stakeholders and the dynamics that can bring to the different industries. So that was definitely something that, again, I didn't really go in with many preconceptions, but there's a very different feel to every industry in terms of, I guess, the way work gets done and the way people interact to get work done.
Yeah. And I don't know, this is a pretty funny one. I've like watched a few of your stories and things on Instagram, but like, what does a typical day look like for you at the moment? Like it might be, I can kind of see your reaction to that, because it's probably not a very typical day at the moment. But what does a typical day look like for you at the moment with your 3 or 4 different hats you're wearing?
This week is probably a really good example, actually, because it's been wild. So a typical day, I wake up around 5 to work on my own projects and initiatives, whether that's the podcast, whether that's my leadership training business, which is still kind of soft launch stage, just starting to get the word out there, or it's, working on the leadership framework, my everyday leadership framework, which really captures the essence of the kind of leadership that can benefit the everyday person on trade sites. So any combination of that kind of work might occur between that kind of like 5 o'clock to 7:30 in the morning, because I'm most fresh and my mind is most fresh in the morning. So I really prioritize that time for my projects. Then it's kind of getting the household ready for the day. I've got a dog and a bird, which brings very unique challenges to the household. So it's making sure they're all fed and watered and getting ready for work and heading to work, where I then spend my 9 to 5 connecting with apprentices and employers and just supporting the apprenticeship journey like holistically. And then when I come home, it could be any combination of admin, or it could be more podcast interviews, or it could be like prepping social media. And just this week, I think on Monday, I had a board meeting after work. Tuesday, I delivered a virtual leadership workshop. Wednesday, I had another board meeting. And then obviously today we're on the podcast. And this morning, I picked up a Jack Ute to generate paid content for the first time. So I think that officially makes me an influencer, which was never my plan. But I'm just happy to be in a Ute again, because tradies and Utes just belong together, and I haven't had one for a while. So yeah, I kind of probably would have said yes even if they didn't pay me.
Yeah, I did see that just before coming on here. That's pretty incredible that, yeah, that's a thing for you now. That's pretty amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I'll enjoy the Ute while I have it, that's for sure.
Well, Ashley Belteky, thanks so much for coming on. Had a ball talking to you. Many more questions probably after the conversation than when I had coming in.
I'm really grateful to have been invited on the podcast, because I think even just the conversation around mindset, and it just resonates so much with things that I'm so passionate about bringing to industry around thinking about more than just our technical skills and who we are as a whole person. So thank you for everything you do to bring this conversation to life. And thanks for having me on the podcast so I could share, I guess, my little slice and my little perspective. So I'm looking forward to staying connected and seeing what kind of comes out of this community and this conversation.
That's it for today's episode of Constructing Mindsets. Remember, every conversation is a chance to shift the culture of construction. Subscriptions and reviews are always appreciated. Until next time, let's keep building the kind of industry we all want to be a part of.